First of all, thank you for attending this evening, and thank you to those who purchased tickets to allow others to attend. Human Rights for All is less than a year old and has already come so far. I want to explain some of the history behind Human Rights for All, what is happening now, and where we are going. I'd spent many years overseas and arrived back in Australia approximately 5 years ago. When I returned, I was astounded at Australia's arbitrary detention regime. I'd lived in Europe, Africa and Asia and had spent time in places with very challenging human rights records. As a traveller and lawyer, however, I completely failed, and still on occasion fail to understand what has happened in Australia for this arbitrary detention regime to develop. Even in Zimbabwe, where I lived for a year, I was able to enter a prison and walk out with a friend who'd been arrested for complaining after he was assaulted by police. He was assaulted by police. Ironically, it turns out that getting people out of detention in Mugabe's regime is harder than in Australia. Just think about that for a second. Easier. Easier. Think about the easy one. I'm not nervous. Human Rights for All actually began after I approached Villawood Detention Centre to offer to teach boxing and kickboxing to detainees. After it was pointed out that Serco and immigration might not be supportive of detainees being taught how to fight, I thought, what else could I do to assist other than teaching them how to fight their way out? Wait, I thought, I'm also a lawyer. Maybe I could use my legal skills. And so I started visiting detainees and retrained from a corporate to a human rights lawyer. What I very quickly realised was that there were many people in detention, mainly men, who had been there for years, in some cases more than 5 years, and in some cases approaching a decade. These people had been through all sorts of legal processes. They could not return to their countries of origin, and yet they remained in detention. Each story is individual, complex, and compelling. And so I started helping. I became a migration agent and I started advocating. I soon discovered, as all advocates do, that each person was much more than their legal or asylum seeker story. Each asylum seeker is an individual, a member of a family, a member of a community, and a person. And this was key, recognising their individual personhood. This was the key to their legal process. For each person, it became clear that there was something I, as a lawyer, could do after getting to know them as a person. But again, as many advocates and people in this room know, this sort of work cannot be squeezed into convenient billable hours. The amount of time it takes to build trust, develop relations, chase information, and visit places of detention means that this sort of work is not commercially viable in many respects. Flying to an asylum seeker's bedside to interview them when they are threatened with deportation is invaluable, but is unaffordable for most. The majority of people in long-term detention or with complex cases cannot afford to pay lawyers for the amount of time needed to be dedicated to them to plan and execute a successful long-term release strategy. And so I decided to establish a charitable law firm where the majority of funding would come from private donors. And importantly also from asylum seekers whom Human Rights for All have assisted in their release and who are established in the community. A kind of paying it backwards strategy to help those now in the same situation as they once were. And now, in this room, we have people who have paid it backwards. We have people also who are just starting out. We have a person who arrived on a plane and was told that they would be deported within 4 days, and yet they are here in the community, working and contributing. We have a person whose family was told that for their children to ever be released from detention, they would need to divorce themselves from their father. And yet they are here in the community, and their children have Australian accents. And we have a person who was imprisoned on false accusations and then detained. And yet they are here, just starting out, but they are here. So what does this mean? This means that we can do it. Look around you in this room. Everyone here is contributing. Person by person, the lawyers, the barristers, the advocates, the families, the friends, we can secure the release of asylum seekers. So Human Rights for All plans to grow with the support of advocates, students, and volunteer lawyers, whom Human Rights for All already relies on, and I thank you for that. We will continue with our international work with the United Nations and the International Criminal Court. We will continue with our domestic work with the Department, commissions, tribunals and courts, all on a pro bono basis. And whilst thanking people, I would like to especially thank my family, Brian, my kids, who are over there, my parents, and my friends. But particularly my family who are here tonight and who often hear, sorry I can't, fill in the blank, tonight, urgent application, or sorry I can't be there, I'm at Villawood, don't even bother calling me. And one last thanks to Mums for Refugees for organising this event. Aisha and Dolce in particular, who approached me and said they wanted to put on a fundraising event and donate the money to Human Rights for All. My first thought was, I hope they know I can't sing. I really can't sing. No talent. And then, yes, that sounds amazing. So I'm looking forward to celebrating, and thank you so much for your vision, and thank you to everyone for coming and supporting.